but we'll go ahead and get started. And I will turn it over to Scott Sanders, our manager, to introduce our guests here today.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor and council members. We do have two presentations this morning. We're going to kick this one off with Greg and his crew over at the Catch Des Moines.
Morning, council.
Morning. Good morning.
Where's everybody?
They knew you were coming.
Yeah, that's a bad sign. Well, you failed the audit, I'm sorry to say. Well, great to be here with you and do our annual presentation for you all. Along with me today, I've got Shannon Winters, who's our Vice President of Finance, Trina Flack, who's our Vice President of Sales, and Brock Conrad, who's our Vice President of Marketing. Those are the only vice presidents we have compared to other organizations that have 20 or 30. So there you go. Morning, Councilman. We obviously we have a mission statement to increase visitors, and we just kind of created this new statement because we still find people are confused as to who we are, what we do, things like that. So we kind of wrote up a paragraph here to talk about things that we bring in, and maybe this will light a light in people's heads and say, oh, okay, they're the group that does that kind of stuff. So, we bring in big events, and we also bring in small events. We help boost community awareness. We help boost people wanting to live here, people wanting to move here, things like that. And obviously creates a huge economic impact on the entire metro area. Our board is lined up with every city that has a 2080 agreement with us. It's on our board, which are 14. Our chair this year is Brian Mulcahy, who I think you all know. He's the assistant director of the Des Moines Airport. Greg Hudson's our vice chair. Chris Conley, Steve Peters, who manages the Hotel Fort Des Moines. And we're happy to have the new mayor, Connie Bozen, on our board. So good board, great exec board, very, very involved with us. I think you're aware of how most of our funding works. About 89% of our funding does come through hotel motel tax. People travel to the area. They spend money in a lot of different places, shopping, entertainment, on and on and on. They spend the night in a hotel. When they check out, they pay an additional 7% hotel motel tax, of which the hotel then writes the check to the state. State returns that check to the cities, and then you disperse it. We receive 2/7 of that, and Bravo receives 2/7, and you retain 3/7 of that tax. Proud of our budget. Shannon does a great job in keeping things under control financially. Only 15% of our overall budget is spent on admin, so 85% is spent on where it's supposed to be spent through marketing, our sports efforts, and our convention sales and event experience efforts. I'm going to turn it over to Trina to run through the sales aspect.
Good morning. Monday morning where it's like I don't even know what I do for a living and you guys are doing a council meeting. So last year, 2023, we hosted 371 events in the greater Des Moines area. 250 of those were due to sales efforts. So our team is measured in definites and assists. Definites are a thing that we have a hand in and go out and solicit or bid on. Assists are things that happen whether we're involved or not. So the Iowa State Fair is an example of an assist, right? It's going to be here regardless of whether Catch Des Moines is involved. And then we booked 261 events for the future. Just a handful of that 22-23 list of events. Ironman 70.3 is an important one to call out because obviously the city of Des Moines is hugely involved in making that happen, keeping that here. State Games of America, Shorthorn, which happens at the fairgrounds, Kennedy Center, which takes place in multiple theater venues downtown and uses hotels. And the National Veterans Golden Age Games is another one that I know this team was heavily involved in. As we look at our 23-24 fiscal, I think a big one that I want to give a shout out here is RAGBRAI, that event. I mean, I look at this crew right here. I mean, Carl was like actually door knocking. The financial commitment and lift that this team took on wouldn't have happened without the city of Des Moines. So very appreciative of the partnership there. Several other major ones. AAU Junior Olympics is one that came in really on the heels of RAGBRAI. World Pork Expo, which happens every year. Obviously, the state tournament, All Iowa Tech basketball, which happens in multiple facilities. So just a really good list. As we look ahead to June of this year, National Speech and Debate will bring in 10,000 students. So they'll use all of the Iowa Event Center. They'll use Des Moines schools, West Des Moines schools, and Waukee schools. So they'll be here for a week. Also, National Junior High Rodeo Finals, which will happen at the fairgrounds. And 700 of those athletes will stay kind of all over the place. Yeah, go ahead.
Learn something new. Quad ball.
Quad ball
actually has a major league.
Yes, and it's formerly Quidditch, but due to
That makes more sense.
whatever that happened between J.K. Rowling and the sport, they're now quad ball. Oh, so specific to Des Moines, 285 leads were sent from our team. 299 events were hosted here. 322 events were booked. So that's assist and definite together for specific to the city of Des Moines hotels. And just a little bit about how we solicit new business. We attend 10 industry trade shows across varying markets. So that is sports and religious, nursing, association, education, small and large meetings. We have a major focus on Washington, D.C. This week, our team is doing a co-op event with 6 other CVBs in the Washington, D.C. market at the Hay Adams Hotel. So it's a way for us to, say, hey, look at us. And also, if you've hosted a meeting in one of these other cities, you can absolutely host your meeting here. We technically have an office there, which is actually a P.O. box. So it sounds really glamorous. Maybe not as glamorous. We leverage our third-party relationships, which are like planners that book on behalf of other organizations. So we have sponsorships there, memberships in all the national organizations. We do sales calls in various cities, host site visits. So this week actually is the National Senior Games site visit. So Mayor Bozen's playing pickleball as part of that. It's going to be a sight to see for sure.
It will be. Since I've never played it before, I'm told they're going to show me how. I just have to hit the ball. Yeah,
You've played ping pong and you play tennis. It's like a good hybrid of those too. You'll be fine.
Well, always a learning lessons.
Yeah. We also have a sports advisory committee, which is made up of all the local sports organizations and athletic directors. We have a customer advisory board, which is about 15, 20 planners that we bring in twice a year to really ask their opinions on everything we're doing and show them all the things that are going on. And then a Catch Champions program, which is all of our locals that really have a hand in bringing things here. So they're very important to us. With that, I'll touch on occupancy too. You can see kind of over the years, the Des Moines occupancy as it relates to the metro and the average daily rate. So the city of Des Moines specifically is really holding its own compared to the metro. And average daily rate is amazing as it continues to increase. Okay, now I'll turn it over to Brett.
First slide here is just an overview of last fiscal year, some of the major metrics that we track throughout the year. Some really big ones for us, a couple of ones that we've had the most success that we've ever had so far. So the bottom one there, website visits to catchdesmoines.com, over 1.6 million. That was about 28% more than we've ever had. So I think we're continuing to see people's interest in visiting the greater Des Moines region and consuming our content that we're providing to them. At the top there, media highlights. I really like to talk about this one. Those are earned media impressions. So those are things that our team is actually going out and soliciting publications to talk about greater Des Moines and Des Moines, whether that's locally, throughout the state, Midwest, and nationally. Through those efforts, we gained over 510 million impressions through those efforts, which is a value equivalency for advertising over $1 million. So that was, quote unquote, I guess, free advertising, but through those efforts, though. So we're really excited about that.
Did you do something different to get that many site visits?
Yeah, I think just there was a lot bigger focus on being strategic of what we have here and trying to find those media members that specifically have that sort of niche market. and really going after that. So the sports market's obviously a really big one for us because Trina and her team do such an amazing job with that. And then all the sports facilities that we have in the region now, and they continue to grow and get more of them.
Sure.
It really makes it easier for us to tell that story, and that's been a big story that we told this past year. So, yeah. And then this slide here is just kind of what we've been working on this fiscal year. It's just an overview of our advertising and what that looks like. So on the left side, I'll go through that quickly. For the most, down there at the bottom, we have our advertising budget. For the year, it's a $1.6 million. So that's money that we're putting into creative and then media dollars to get people interested in traveling here. So our top markets, state of Iowa is obviously our biggest one, getting people to come visit here to the state capital. Omaha is a very big market for us, probably our number one out-of-state market. Kansas City, Minneapolis, and then two other ones we've started the last couple of years that have continued to grow is Milwaukee and Chicago. And through our website analytics and stuff like that, Chicago is actually getting close to being our second top market. So we're getting a lot of people that are traveling here from that region. And then Milwaukee continues to grow too. So I think it's expanding outside of those border cities and getting out a little bit further too, which we're excited about. Go ahead.
Traveling here, why? Because there's an event here, or they just
that through research, we've always kind of known that events are the biggest reason why people are traveling here for leisure activity. And so we try to do a lot of our marketing around those major events, whether that's the state fair or some of the events that Trina has going on. But we're also seeing people that are traveling here wanting to come to maybe a less, not as a big city as maybe Chicago or Milwaukee or Kansas City. And so we're seeing a lot more people within the state. And I think through coming out of COVID, people were wanting to travel just a little bit, maybe quote unquote smaller cities compared to traveling outside the state. And yeah, so I think that we know that's our biggest market is within that 6-hour radius of drive. But
So, just a short story from the chief, Wingert. He was at Annie's talking to a table nearby, and a table of 4 coming down from Minneapolis twice a month because they know there's just something happening in Des Moines. I mean, just other events that are going on.
Yeah.
Is that, I know it's real anecdotal, but does that happen often? That
yeah, and a lot of the stuff that we find is anecdotal like that. So I think, we'll talk to some of our partners, whether that's a restaurant or an attraction. And I think a good example is a couple weeks ago, I was talking with the art center, and they, you give your zip code when you come and visit the art center, so they can see where their visitors are coming from. And I think that day that I was there, they had some from Maryland, they had some from Washington State. So I mean, those are big outliers. But the surrounding states that they have coming in is really impressive. And those numbers keep going up. I think a lot of it is, at least on the leisure side of things, we have put a lot of money into creating content. So really, really highlighting I think you've seen our The Best program that we run. It's where we highlight the best things of Des Moines, whether that's food items, attractions, and different things like that. We really make it feel like you're getting an authentic taste of Des Moines when you come visit here. And so, and we put a lot of money in that into those outer cities, Minneapolis being one of them. So whether that's kind of anecdotal things that we see, it's still really good things
that's
to hear.
like all summer they're coming twice a month. So interesting.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that instead of visiting Minneapolis too are coming to Des Moines. So it's not only people from Minneapolis. I think there are some people that are choosing to come to Des Moines rather than visit Minneapolis too, what we've been seeing. So, and then as far as advertising mix, very kind of a nice even split of what we're doing media-wise. A lot of social media advertising, which that's just a great cheap way to get in front of people, especially with our content. Streaming TV, Hulu, YouTube TV, those things for the cord cutters. We still do broadcast because that is important also. Paid search is something that we've really amped up, and that's people searching on Google for different things, whether that's a competitor of our city or just specifically things to do in Des Moines. We're getting in front of them there. pre-roll video, and then some radio and out-of-home. We're also getting into that mix too.
We'll wrap it up here. Bottom line, just on things we can quantify, the groups, the sporting events, things like that, we brought in over $164 million in economic impact. Break that down by tax dollars. For every dollar of hotel tax we receive, we return over $25 back into the community. So pretty good ROI. Happy to answer any questions, take comments. Glad you're back. Did you win? You did win, didn't you?
To be determined. I got more votes. Mr. Edwards, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Like, as you go out and talk to people, and I've been lucky to be on some of those, what are things that you hope the city keeps investing in or makes a priority of that makes your job easier to bring people here?
I think you guys have done a wonderful job. I think, safety, obviously, big concern, but I think you've got that corrected. I think continuing to look at what attractions that we have here that bring in visitors, like county soccer stadium or county soccer complex and different sports complexes. You look at the metro area, and now it's kind of boomed. Oh, you got all these new complexes either opening or that have opened recently. And that's creating a big thing. It's a bigger thing for us and our sales team to go after new events and things like that. So I think any opportunity you have to expand in those kinds of areas that are going to attract more visitors. Obviously, downtown is a concern for everybody right now. We've lost some retail. Got to get some retail down there. I'm always preaching that to the partnership gang, and I think that would help greatly. Obviously, people still want to live downtown, so that's a good thing. Those are just a couple things off the top.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Greg, there was Kennedy Theater on a couple of the slides. Could you just...
That's a group Trina's brought in several times. It's actually with partnership with the Iowa State Theater Department. And it's a regional group where college kids that are in theater and arts come in for about a 4-day period. And they do all their events. They use Hoyt Sherman, they use the Civic Center, use other vacant buildings, they use some space in Capitol Square, and they'll do everything from ballet to improv speaking and just all the different arts and what have you. So kind of a cool event. I think they're coming back next year too. Yeah, they come in January. So
the spirit of this time of year, when do we get to host the NCAA men's basketball tournament again?
Well, our bids are in, and we'll find out later this year. The first year available will be 2027. Okay. They switched it. We used to do a 3-year bid process. Now it's only a 2-year bid process.
Okay.
Big story that Trina and her gang got caught up yesterday on is Lincoln is going to put together a proposal, or they have also proposed Lincoln, Nebraska. They've got a pretty nice facility over there, but we feel pretty good. I mean, our NCAA contacts like what we've done, and we've proven ourselves, and so
excellent.
Fingers crossed. You never know, but yeah. Great showing for our Iowa schools, too, this year, huh?
Absolutely.
Particularly your hometown team of Drake, got them both in, so. Anything else?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
sir.
just had a question in terms of where the budget's at in comparison to past years. I saw, I think budget was 7.6 million this last year.
Yes.
And then you had a slide that had the numbers in terms of how hotel occupancy and price have trended over the last 5 years. That's obviously if the hotel motel tax is 90% of the budget, like how is that?
That's helped. This year we
What does that
budgeted a
translate?
10% increase in our budget. I don't know that we're going to hit it. The first quarter was down compared to what we were anticipating, but we've made some gains throughout the year. We're in the middle of our budget season right now. It's going to be less, obviously less than 10%. Still seeing, we're not beating any records by our occupancies by any means, and I think we're still seeing that business travel still is not back to where it was. I mean, you look at all the stuff we're bringing in, and Trina and our whole team looks at the weekly occupancy reports, and we're like, gosh, last week we had these 3 or 4 or 5 big groups in town, and we were still running 60%, so that it's just that business travel that's not back. And just really encouraging our local corporations to, hey, start having meetings again, start bringing your folks in, because that helped tremendously.
Our number this last year was 56% occupancy. Is that what the slide?
Yes.
And what was the pre-pandemic occupancy? That was
like 34%, I think, something like that.
No,
Before
pre.
it was like,
pre.
Pre-pandemic?
Yeah, like 2019 was like 50.
It was
We're a
59.
little bit below.
Yeah.
So you would say that 3% gap, maybe even that 3% gap is all business travel, is what you would surmise, and maybe even more, like we might be up in terms of event and other travel.
Yeah, we're up in group and we're up in leisure travel. Coming out of the pandemic, our weekend occupancies were higher than our weekday, which is total opposite of previous trends. Yeah.
So okay. So that's in line with what we've seen, like foot traffic downtown, for example, is higher on the back or exceeding where we were pre-pandemic, while weekday travel is down still.
Yeah, exactly.
is there anything else? If not, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Edwards.
Thank you all.
Thank your team for what you do, and keep bringing things to Des Moines.
We stay for the audit, but we don't understand it, so
It's okay, Greg, none of us do.
honesty.
Mayor, if I could, on the second topic?
Your more favorite topic.
Yeah, well, I understand
Only
a little
Scott.
bit. A little bit.
Only Mr. Sanders would like an audit.
So this is our annual opportunity to hear about how the financials finished up. But in particular, I wanted to spend a minute to thank RSM and their team, and obviously our own finance staff that's led up by James Remington, in the work that was done, not just this cycle, but the last 2 cycles. There's been quite some challenges with the federal rules with the ARPA funding, and actually they've changed them consecutively in many instances. And that has meant that the value of RSM goes beyond the bookkeeping, looking at our books and making sure things are properly put in place. But they actually are able to help us give guidance to us on how to handle these federal grant programs and whatnot. And so I want to send my appreciation to them, because it was incredibly valuable in the heat of the battle, if you will, as we're putting numbers together and getting new guidance from the IRS on how to handle that from a financial standpoint. So I really appreciate that work. So Nick, I'll turn it over to you.
Honorable Mayor and council members, Nick Shaw, Finance Director. I'm only going to take a little bit of time. I wanted to thank the Finance Department and all the other departments that had to contribute to answer questions when the RSM comes as we go through. Like Scott had said, when we get to the single audit, the ARPA dollars that we have was the very significant percentage of this year's testing. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit as well. And as we go through this is RSM's chance to talk to you guys, and then you guys talk to them about, how our report for fiscal year June 30th, 2023 went. A little bit later presentation, just because there's a lot of federal guidance that we have to follow and get through, so it does take a bit of time with that. So I will hand it over to RSM and Robert, our managing partner.
Thanks, Nick. I'm Robert Kreiser, Senior Manager, RSM. Really just want to talk about my required communications and then just a few financial aspects of the audit. But first, I do just also want to thank James, Nick, Tim, and their team throughout the process. They're always great to work with, very timely. It just is a really good partnership throughout the audit to make sure things continue to move forward. And the communication is always open, and they're just great to work with. So we really appreciate their hard work because each year, not just the single audit and the federal requirements there, but also just from a financial reporting requirements, the last couple of years has been some really, they don't seem as big from a financial statement perspective, but when it comes to the work that they have to put in to make sure it's appropriate, it's a lot of man hours just kind of getting their hands around it. So we really appreciate their hard work getting us everything that we need when it comes to that. So first, just my kind of required communications. As external auditors, we audit under 3 sets of standards. The first being generally accepted auditing standards to ensure that the financials are appropriately presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. And in relation to that, we issued an unmodified or clean opinion in the current year, or in relation to 2023. We also audit under government auditing standards, where we do additional work over internal controls and compliance. And there were no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses in the current year. And then I'll touch a little bit about our work over uniform grant guidance, or the single audit, a little bit later on in the presentation. This year, the main change from a financial statement perspective was the implementation of GASB 96, or subscription-based information technology arrangements. Last year, there was GASB 87, which was leases, which brought on right-of-use assets and liabilities. This is similar, bringing on right-of-use assets and IT liabilities related to those long-term agreements related to the subscription-based software that the city utilizes. So when looking at the financial statements, you'll see that change if you compare 23 to 22. We also do additional work every year over management's judgments and estimates, with the cities include allowance for doubtful accounts, OPEB, and pension assumptions, self-insurance liabilities, fair value of investments, and then the implementation of GASB 96 in the current year. In terms of audit adjustments, there were no audit adjustments in the current year. There was one past adjustment related to the implementation of 96, essentially from just a simplicity perspective. What the city did was brought on all of those right-of-use assets as current year additions in the financials. Based on the standard, about $300,000 should have been put on at as of the beginning balance. So you don't doesn't restate any net position or restate last year's report. That's just kind of how the standard is written. But because of the immaterial nature of that $300,000, it was from a simplicity perspective, just ran those through the current year. But because of the nature of that, that's just something that per our standards, we just have to report that as a past adjustment based on the amount. But it does not impact the financial statements were still in accordance with GAAP and reported materially. There were also no disagreements with management. We did not consult with any other accountants, and of course RSM is independent of the city. Just a little bit about some of the financial aspects, some of the changes you'll see year over year. In terms of the governmental funds revenue, the biggest change you're going to see is that intergovernmental revenue. So in the past, I think we've talked about how the cash was received in relation to ARPA, but when it came to revenue, that could not be recognized until the expenditures happened. So there was about $51.5 million of expenditures on the schedule of expenditures federally awarded in 2023, and in relation to that, then the revenue was recognized for those expenditures. So that's that large jump there in the intergovernmental revenues, which increased about 50%. There was also about a $15 million increase in the use of money and property line item, which is really related to mainly market changes. and really all those dollars from ARPA that had not been utilized yet, and then just the changes in interest rates in relation to that large increase. Yeah.
So we got additional revenue from the, okay.
And also 22 rates were pretty historically bad. So that's another reason for that big swing is 23 was good and also 22 was bad in terms of interest rates.
Depending on your perspective, good
Correct.
if you're sitting on cash,
Correct.
maybe bad if you're
Correct.
trying to get things redeveloped.
In relation to interest income, yes.
Right, okay.
Correct.
So, but the rates are still comparable, so should we expect to see that 18 million again in the future?
As we spend down funds, it'll probably be less.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be
Right.
clear, there were two factors, the interest rates going up, and we had 90 million of ARPA funds.
Right, that were sitting.
Deposited that didn't get spent right away.
Right.
Right.
But now most of that is now spent, so I would expect a small decline. And then if interest rates change,
We didn't get,
although 24, the interest rates will be okay because we've only got 3 months left.
right, we didn't get 15 million in interest on ARPA dollars alone, right?
No.
No, not just related, but just in terms of the ARPA, at the beginning of the year, you probably had almost that entire 90 million, and now at the end of 2023, you would have had like
Right,
40.
but that would account for maybe a third of that.
But it's just multiple factors.
Yeah.
With the interest rates we average.
Well, in terms of expenditures, really very minimal changes from 22 to 23. Overall expenditures increased about 1.4 million or 0.3%. There was really no significant pieces there outside of you'll see the debt service piece from the early redemptions in 2022, which why that number was so large in 22. This is the general fund, unrestricted fund balance in days. This is a big jump in 2023, but still, when we were talking internally as a team, but just a lot of that is still related to ARPA. About I think 55 days is related to ARPA, so really not as big of a jump as you're seeing just with the increase. And related to those dollars, that they have not been yet committed or restricted by board. So that's kind of why you're seeing that big jump. But just from a standpoint of even the last few years, the city's in a very good position, at least from what we see from like other cities as well as GFOA expectations from their general fund balance in days. In terms of the enterprise funds, overall was a decrease in operating income by about 2.9 million or 7.7%. This is important to note that this is just operating income and it excludes depreciation, but there are some below the line items. For example, like municipal housing, there's some below the line capital grants that would offset that negative number of about 1.4 million. Just to kind of put that in perspective, that this is just a piece, not necessarily the overall change in their fund balances. And then in terms of our single audit, our work over the schedule of expenditures federally awarded, or the CFA, last year there were 3 findings. All of them were corrected in the current year. We do work to ensure that those findings, to identify whether those findings are corrected or not. And based on our work done, those findings were appropriately corrected in 2023. There was only one major program this year, and it was the ARPA fund. Essentially, it was $51.6 million, or 79.1% of the 65.2 million of federal expenditures in the current year, and we issued an unmodified or clean opinion in relation to that major program. That is essentially all that I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions on the audit? If not, thank you
Thank you.
for the
Really,
clean audit.
thank you. Really appreciate the time.
And really thank to Nick and his staff for all the work, because I am sure with all the ARPA and all the constraints and rules that change, it's been quite an undertaking. So I appreciate the work and dedication to make sure that we have a great financial aspect for our city to work on. So with that, I guess we will see everyone back here for the regular meeting at 4 o'clock. We have a closed session. So I would say we are adjourned for the work session. Thank you.